So Nick Meyers is the founder and creative director of RedFox Creative in Madison, USA. RedFox Creative is an innovative creative marketing agency that helps brands of all kinds connect with people through emerging technologies. Nick has worked extensively in artificial intelligence, specifically voice assistants, AI like Alexa and Google Assistant, to help organizations create unique one-to-one engagements with their customers and target audience. Nick has been featured in PR Daily and has spoken across the US on how marketers are being leveraging the power of AI and voice assistant technology to give their brand a voice. Nick is an avid traveler and is consistently on the go, trying to experience as many new places as possible. In this free time, you will be find Nick networking, nose deep in the latest future trend, or a book on AI, or spending time with his family and close friends trying out the latest restaurant in Madison. Nick is also working on building a new arm of RedFox Creative that focus specifically on voice and AI services that will provide voice as a service solution to brands all of shapes and sizes seeking to enhance their brand and connect with customers using voice assistant technology.
Thank you for the amazing introduction. I guess good morning from where I'm currently located here in Madison, Wisconsin. But I'm very excited to be here as a speaker for the Global Digital Marketing Summit E3 to be able to talk about voice assistant technology, the current state of the technology, and ultimately where it's going and how brands can begin implementing this technology in their overall marketing strategy to connect with consumers, connect with their audiences in an entirely different way. And I'll also dive into some of the trends that we're seeing with this technology as well and why we're going to see such explosive growth with it over the next couple of years. So I hope everybody is excited because I am. So here we go. So first things first, I'd like everybody to put on our time travel hats. We're going to take a quick jog into the past. The year is now 1968. It's 7 years before the founding of Microsoft and 8 years before the founding of Apple, of course, two of the world's largest technology companies. Now, up until this point, many people were not exposed to the concept of artificial intelligence. In fact, it really was just something that people would talk about in inner circles, and even pop culture and the media really hadn't grasped on to what AI actually meant in the grand scheme of things. However, in 1968, a movie premiered called 2001: A Space Odyssey. And for those of you who have seen this movie, it is absolutely fantastic. I myself have, surprisingly only been able to catch bits and pieces of it. But the reason this movie is so impactful in the world of AI is because it exposed everybody to really the first pop culture understanding of artificial intelligence. And normally I display a video here, but in the image here you can see the whole plot of the movie is they are a bunch of space explorers in outer space, and they're up in their ship, and they're grappling with all of these different things on their mission, but then the artificial intelligence that is embedded into the ship called the HAL 9000 becomes smart enough to realize, why am I listening to all of these space pilots? I can do what I want, and as a matter of fact, it ends up killing some of the space pilots and becomes way more intelligent than they could ever be. So back in 1968, this blew everybody's mind. This was the first real exposure that everybody had to artificial intelligence, and it really just set the stage for what a lot of people thought AI would be for decades to come. Now, I can definitely assure everybody that artificial intelligence, at least in 2019, is nowhere near the HAL 9000. But we are making a lot of rapid developments in artificial intelligence. We're going to see it grow and expand and be able to accomplish more than we could ever hope to in the coming decades. So I always like to start off with this because I think this is a really solid understanding of where AI really got its start in terms of pop culture, not only in the United States, but across the world. So the big question that I think a lot of people are asking, at least in 2019, is what exactly is artificial intelligence? And I really always like to dive into this in all of the presentations I give on voice assistant technology, because in order to truly understand voice assistant technology and how this is going to impact brands, we need to understand exactly what artificial intelligence is. So really, when we think of artificial intelligence today, there are four primary components that make up AI. The first being machine learning, which hopefully everybody has heard about. We know machines and computers now have the capability to sift through data, recognize patterns, and learn from that data. There is also deep learning, which takes machine learning to a new level, which allows it to recognize patterns within data um, very, 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 very efficiently. And then combined with the neural network, which is actually, we've actually been able to develop an artificial neural network, much like our brain functions, for machines to be able to sift through data and recognize patterns. And then the last component of this is natural language processing, or NLP, and this is the ability of a computer to take in our language and then carry out an action with it. And that is truly what is the AI component behind the voice assistants that we've come to know today, such as Alexa, Google Assistant, Cortana, and Siri. So natural language processing is truly the AI that's driving all of this. So right now, a lot of people think that AI is approaching the level where it can become sentient, make its own decisions. We are nowhere near that yet, and we probably will not be for many years to come. But what we can do right now is get artificial intelligence in its current state to do one thing extremely well. And there's a difference between that. And the difference in the AI world is known as narrow artificial intelligence versus artificial general intelligence. So artificial general intelligence is where we're trying to work towards. We're trying to get to the point where we don't have to hold AI's hand anymore to let it sift through data. It can make decisions on its own. It can obtain data on its own. It really can do anything on its own that it chooses. Now, we are years away from this actually becoming a reality. And in fact, many people in the AI community don't even know if this will become a reality, but this is what everybody is working towards. What we can do right now is narrow artificial intelligence. We can use a set of data to train AI very, very well to do one thing and one thing only. So that is the current state of artificial intelligence and everything that we're pushing towards. And a lot of this is being driven by the Internet of Things, because in order for AI to work very well, we need to have access to large and vast amounts of data, which up until the past 10, 15 years with the rise of the internet and cloud computing, we really haven't had the technology to be able to obtain as much data as we can to be able to train artificial intelligence. But at the end of the day, everything in our known world can be broken down into data. If you really think about it, every sight, sound, smell, taste, touch can be broken down into a series of zeros and ones. And it's because of this that AI and machines are going to be able to outpace most things that human beings currently are able to do, because our world is literally data. And anything that has to do with data, machines will be able to do better. So this is another example that I typically like to give in this talk, and again, I typically have a video, but the screenshot here is of Google CEO Sundar Pichai at the Google I/O Developer Conference in 2018. And last year, at Google's Developer Conference, they showcased a division of the Google Assistant called Google Duplex. And what Google Duplex is really it is the most advanced form of conversational AI that I've personally seen on the market today. So what they did is Google trained Google Duplex to sift through thousands upon thousands upon thousands of conversations between people booking a hair appointment and reserving a table at a restaurant. And what Google showcased in this demo was they did a test that showcased Google Duplex and the Google Assistant simply by saying, Google, book me a hair appointment at 10 a.m. on this day. The Google Assistant called the hair salon, and the person on the other end did not know that this was Google Assistant, and it was purely conversational. The Google Assistant had, like and different intonations that we as humans normally have. So it was almost indistinguishable to the human ear whether this was a person or the Google Assistant. And the reason they were able to do this is because they had access to massive amounts of data. And they trained this program on this data for weeks and weeks and weeks, but it was able to sift through so many conversations so efficiently that it literally was able to train itself to sound like a human being booking an appointment. So the question I like to pose here is, if we can train digital assistants like Google Assistant and Alexa and a handful of others to sound human, where is that going to leave us in the coming years? I mean, a thing that I always like to point out is imagine, we may not even have to break up with somebody in our relationship anymore. We can simply ask Google to do it for us, then it will sound like us. What kind of questions does this draw in the grand scheme of technology and the things we'll be able to do? But the Google Duplex is actually being rolled out worldwide to various users of Google Assistant right now. So it's going to be really interesting to see how people start leveraging this technology in order to carry out tasks in their day-to-day life. So this is a great example that I always like to bring up about where we're currently at with artificial intelligence, because it's the best example that I've seen of narrow AI in the grand scheme of things at this point. So a theory of exponential growth. So what is exactly driving all of this artificial intelligence development and really technological development in general? Well, really I usually ask everybody if I'm doing a live presentation, what is this a picture of? And I usually always get one person say it's a microprocessor, and that is absolutely correct. This is a picture of a microprocessor. And the reason why this is important, it's because of the law of exponential growth within technology that we've been able to really hone in on the capabilities of some of these things we've been developing, and why since 1965 we've seen the number of transistors within a microprocessor double each year. And it's only going to continue to double until we reach infinity, but I'll get to that point in just a few minutes. But all of this is being driven by something called Moore's Law. And what Moore's Law is, it is the theory that Gordon Moore, who was the founder of Intel in 1965, came up with, that stated that every 2 years the number of transistors will double in a microprocessor until infinity, until we can't go any smaller, which projects infinite computing power. So ever since 1965, our microprocessors have been doubling every single year, which allows us to accomplish more because we're able to work with more and more data, and the technology and computing power becomes more powerful and more efficient. However, we're estimated to cap out with Moore's Law actually within the next 1 to 2 years, which is pretty crazy when you think about it, that we can't get any smaller on a silicon microprocessor chip to be able to fit any more transistors. But just for point of information, the current number of transistors in a standard microprocessor, depending on how large the computer is about 2 billion transistors, which is crazy. It's crazy to think about the scope of this technology and how we've been able to develop it since 1965. But just to give more of a real world example with some statistics to kind of break it down. So since 1965, microprocessors have become 3,500 times more powerful. They become 90,000 times more energy efficient, and they become 60,000 times lower in cost. Now, imagine if we applied these same principles to the automotive industry. So imagine if we took all of these figures and applied it to the standard car in the automotive industry. So vehicles could travel at about 300,000 miles per hour. They would have an average mile per gallon of about 2 million. And this is the most mind-blowing one. The cost would be about 4 cents. Can you imagine buying a car for 4 cents? That's crazy. But if you hold these same constants to a variety of different industries, you can just get a really accurate depiction of how this has changed so much in just a couple of decades. And Gordon Moore really issued a quote that I think kind of ties this all together. And that quote is, "Whatever has been done can be outdone." No matter what we do in the world of technology, especially when it comes to artificial intelligence, anything that we've already done can be outdone. And we're seeing that happen before our very eyes with artificial intelligence and the rise of digital voice assistants across the globe. So, breaking down into the fun stuff now. Sorry, one second. So, Alexa, Google, Siri, Cortana, what exactly are these things, and why are they important? So we've really only seen the rise of voice assistant technology in the consumer marketplace since 2014 when Amazon brought Alexa to the market. And then in 2016, we saw Google do a very wide rollout of the Google Assistant with smart speakers, Google Home Mini. Siri has been on the marketplace since 2011 when Apple brought it to the iPhone. And Cortana has been on the marketplace for a couple years as well, being embedded to a majority of Microsoft products. So what exactly are these different voice assistants, though, and devices, and why do they matter? Well, Really, all these different devices and these voice assistant services, they're all cloud-based artificial intelligence that uses machine learning and natural language processing to carry out tasks. So, as I kind of mentioned, Siri kind of came to the party a bit too early. I think Apple had really good intentions when they released this to market back in 2011, but consumers and the overall market wasn't ready yet. So that was really kind of everybody's first taste of voice assistant technology, and luckily, through the years since that, it got a lot better with voice assistants like Alexa and Google. And Siri still is very popular because of all the different applications it has on the iPhone. But really, when we're looking at the leaders in voice assistant technology, we're looking at Alexa and Google. So when Amazon entered, they completely changed the game in 2014 with the release of the Echo speaker. And the Echo is Amazon's most popular line of smart speakers, but it had Alexa built in. And this was really everybody's first exposure to a digital smart assistant that can actually carry out a task very, very well. So exactly how do these voice assistants change the game when it comes to marketing and when it comes to engaging with brands? Well, truly, this is the first time we've had a seamless one-to-one engagement with technology. I mean, if you think about it, for so many years, we've had to, for lack of a better term, drive our technology. We've always had a graphical user interface. We've always had to point and click. We've always had to scroll and tap. But now, with voice assistant technology, that completely gets eliminated. No longer do we need an actual visual graphical interface to be able to accomplish something. We can go back to the simplest form of communication that we have as human beings, and that's speaking. Speaking is the easiest thing for all of us to do, no matter the language across the world, because the moment we come into this world, we're exposed to the concept of speech and language. So thus, we're actually going even farther back to our roots in terms of technology because it's simpler. But we're having a pure one-to-one engagement with technology that enters us into a feedback loop that we've never had before. These devices are able to not only give us a result when we ask for it, but also collect a massive amount of data on everything that we're talking about to make our experience with the technology that much better. And we're also seeing the rise of personalized experiences. So you can create very personal experiences through voice assistant technology that you can't in other places. Because again, we have that one-to-one engagement and that feedback loop with the technology, almost to a human standpoint that the technology has come to, that really allows us to get personal with our customers, with our consumers, and create these personalized digital experiences for everybody. There's a couple brands out there, and I'll go through some examples later on in the presentation here. There's a couple of brands that have already begun leveraging voice assistants to be able to create these branded one-to-one engagement experiences because it keeps them top of mind for people as they sit in their living room, as they sit in their office, or even if they're just walking down the street chatting with one of their smart assistants, which more and more people are beginning to do. So this truly is the culmination of how these devices are beginning to change the game in the greater scope of marketing and communications. So this chart that I'm showing here now, it's a bit of an outdated chart, but I think it really still holds true to what we're seeing in terms of adoption with voice assistant technology. So we see here in 2015, when Alexa was just first coming to market, globally there was 390 million people using a voice assistant in some capacity. And then in 2016, when Google Assistant really hit the market, that number went to 504 million, then 710, 1.6 billion, and the prediction now is in 2021 that 1.8 billion people globally will be using some type of voice assistant in their daily life, whether that is Alexa, Google, Siri, or Cortana. So this chart, I think, does an excellent job at displaying the rapid adoption that we're seeing of the technology globally. Because again, there really isn't a barrier to accessing this. Everybody knows how to talk, everybody knows how to communicate verbally, and this is what this technology allows us to do. Not to mention, it's much simpler asking for something and getting a result than it is having to type it in. And even though smart homes have made it incredibly easy to be able to accomplish all these things just by typing and tapping, we're still eliminating a lot of friction when it comes to voice assistant technology because we're just using the simplest form of communication. And these numbers are only expected to grow. I think a recent figure that I saw is by 2023, there's going to be 500 million smart speaker devices around the world, which is a crazy number to think about it in the scope of things. I mean, we're looking in terms of total world population, the amount of people that are going to have access to these different smart speakers. um, and using them in their daily lives. It's just insane to think about the rapid adoption that we've seen. But hopefully this chart is able to display to you why it's important to start thinking about how voice can be leveraged for your brand now because of how many people the technology is going to impact. So as we're moving through this presentation, maybe you thought to yourself, well, Nick, how did you actually get in to voice assistant technology, and why are you starting to dedicate your life to the study and investigation and use cases that surround it? Well, to be honest, it's a really funny story, and I think this also demonstrates a really good use case that we're starting to see across the board. So I got my first Amazon Echo in December of 2017. I had gotten it as a Christmas gift, and I didn't know what to do with it. I thought it was a novelty, so I set it up on my kitchen counter. And in January of 2018, I was in my bathroom and realized I was out of toilet paper. So as I stood there, I thought to myself, I could hop in my car and go to a local department store to get toilet paper, but I'm lazy. I'm a millennial. I don't do that, right? And then I thought to myself, I could pull up my phone, order it from Amazon or another online vendor because, well, that's 10 times easier too. But then I thought to myself, I just got that crazy voice assistant sitting on my counter. I wonder if I can actually order the toilet paper through that. So, within a matter of seconds, I had asked Alexa to order me toilet paper. Alexa had carried out the request, and she said, I can order you a 12-pack of Continental for $5.63. Would you like to buy it? I bought the toilet paper, and because I was a Prime Pantry member at the time, I had it shipped to my doorstep in less than 24 hours. Mind blown. And that's when the light bulb went on, because I realized this technology eliminates so much friction in our day-to-day lives that it is going to explode in the number of use cases and the amount of things that we're going to be able to do to make our life easier. And e-commerce is just one example, but being able to get on-demand information at will is crazy. And that's exactly what the device allowed me to do. It allowed me to buy something, and the whole interaction took less than 15 seconds. But because I was actually chatting with something that was able to give me feedback, it put the pressure on me. It put the pressure on to actually make a buying decision right there in the moment. So if you think about that concept too, as voice commerce and e-commerce continues to grow, imagine how much more people are going to buy online because the device is going to be able to seamlessly recognize our purchase history, make recommendations, and then put the pressure on consumers to make a purchase within the moment. It's crazy, but this is a really good use case, and this is the background as to why I got involved in this space, and I love telling this story because I think it really displays how this technology is being used. And I know I'm not the only one that's had a use case like this. So what does this mean for marketers? The big question why everybody is sitting in this presentation right now, what does voice assistant technology actually mean for marketers? Well, there's going to be quite a few things that are actually going to change for marketers, which is why I'm telling everybody in the digital marketing space that, I know social media is important, and there are many, many, many companies across the world that still haven't adopted social media, but we're starting to come out of the era of social media. And I think social media will still be important for years to come, but voice assistant technology is going to complement that in so many different ways. So the first thing that's going to change for marketers is truly the rise of virtual experience. So content marketing is going to become even more important than it already is now. I'm sure we've heard all across the board that, content is king. The content that we produce is supposed to resonate. The brand is supposed to display what we want to our consumers. But content is going to become even more important because if we're creating a virtual experience for somebody, we need to funnel them down that tunnel of content that actually helps solve a problem, that actually provides value. So the content that we produce is going to become 10 times more important in the era of voice. And also with this technology, brands are going to need to be top of mind more so now than ever before. Because when it comes to a voice assistant, we get one shot to be the top of mind for the voice assistant, which makes us top of mind for the user. So it's going to become even more important now to develop content that makes us more top of mind than ever, that really can connect, help solve a problem, and provide useful feedback to the person we're trying to target. It's also going to offer a new level of one-to-one engagement that I imagined, because up until this point, we haven't had a pure one-to-one engagement with technology like we have right now. So we're going to be communicating with more and more people through technology, and primarily through the voice first space is how that's going to happen. So a really good use case I also like to talk about with this is there was a story in the New York Times, I believe, last year. And the whole story was about how there was this individual in New York City who had purchased an Amazon Echo, and he got into the habit of using this so often and so frequently that it actually caused some friction between him and his girlfriend, which is crazy to think about. But long story short, when he would go and visit his girlfriend, he would get stressed out and get anxious because she did not have an Amazon Echo and did not have a voice assistant that could solve his problems in a very short period of time. And it eventually got to the point where they actually broke up because he told her, "You can't fulfill my needs like Alexa can." Which is crazy to think about, right? That somebody actually broke up with a significant other because they couldn't fulfill the needs that the voice assistant could. So that level of one-to-one engagement is only going to grow. We're going to see more and more people become personally connected to their voice assistants, and the opportunity is prime for marketers to begin to think about how we're going to be able to communicate in that one-to-one feedback loop with our customers to truly connect them with our brand. And then lastly, the one thing that's going to change for marketers is search engine optimization. So I'm sure we've all heard of SEO and the importance of SEO in general web search, but when it comes to voice assistant technology, search engine optimization is going to change forever, because the way a voice assistant carries out search is dramatically different than how we carry out search in a search engine like Google or Bing. So websites are going to start to need to be optimized for voice now. And the reason I say this is because it's not even with websites, but how the technology works when it actually carries out a search is actually quite interesting. So say, for example, you ask Alexa or Google information about, how hot is the temperature of the sun, right? A very simple question. So what Alexa will do is she will start by using her internal apps, related to traffic, weather, anything that's been baked in to carry out that search. Well, if she cannot find the answer to the search with the internal applications, she will then branch out into the general Alexa skill ecosystem, which just contains, thousands upon thousands of voice apps. And it will use that ecosystem to be able to find an answer to the question. And if it can't find an answer to the question within the voice app ecosystem, it's then going to go out into the general web to find that search. So really right now, this is the key time to jump in on voice assistant technology as a brand. Because if you're able to develop a voice app and get that launched on Alexa or Google, when people start searching for questions related to your product or service, and you already have an app there that provides the answer, that is going to put you ahead of everybody else. And remember, with a voice assistant, position 0 is incredibly important because you get one shot. You get one shot to be picked up in a voice search result. So if you're the first person that's already there providing information on a search result, anybody who tries to create anything underneath you is going to consistently be squashed down because you've been there and the device has been so used to obtaining information from you to this point that the intelligence within the actual natural language processing is going to continually prioritize your information above everybody else's. And we're just first starting to learn about this now, those of us who are in the voice space. So search is going to change immensely. Also, a really cool fact, by next year, 2020, 50% of all search is going to be voice. So 50% of all search carried out is going to be done via a voice assistant. So if there is any time to think about how you can optimize your website, how you can optimize your content for voice to be picked up in a search result, that time is now before everybody else gets to it. And I cannot stress that enough. But we also have to think about when we write content for SEO, how different that's going to look. Because remember, we type differently than how we speak. When we speak, we use a ton of different utterances and we use long tail keywords that stretch at the end. So if you want to be picked up in a voice search result, you're going to have to begin writing your content in a way that a voice assistant will understand, more conversational, answering questions, very simple phrases that a voice assistant can pick up. So voice assistants also prioritize local search as well. So if you're a local business and you're hoping to get picked up by a voice assistant, if somebody's asking for a local pizza place or a local barber or anything like that, you're really going to have to hone in on your local SEO because voice assistants are very strong in local search. And again, it will give you a list of recommendations, but you want to be the first one that it recommends to the user. So what are some things that you can start doing today to optimize your website and content for voice search? Well, the first thing that you want to do when it comes to website is you want to speed up your site. You want to make sure that your page load is under 3 seconds, according to Google, because a voice assistant wants to provide an answer as quickly as possible. So you want to make sure that your site is very fast and is able to provide a result very quickly. You also want to mark up your data. There's a website called schema.org that contains a bunch of different markups. And what you want to do is you want to mark up as much of your data as possible with these different meta pieces, because it makes it easier for the device to translate that into computer speak. So we want to make it easier for the device to be able to read our content as well, and using structured schema and markup allows us to do that. You also want to make sure you claim your Google My Business listing, your business listing on Bing, because again, when we look at that local search component, you want to be the first one that it recommends to the user. So you want to make sure that you've claimed that business listing and you have everything up to date in terms of information. And another thing you want to do too is the FAQ page becomes 10 times more important than ever before, because typically when people ask a question to a voice assistant, it's in a Q&A format. So if you have an FAQ page, a really solid FAQ page on your website, that only increases your chances of the voice assistant picking that up, because it wants to provide an answer to the question. And if you have a question that's tailored to what somebody asked the voice assistant, then it more than likely is going to pick up your answer. So create an FAQ page, create multiple FAQ pages if you have to, but that's only going to increase the likelihood that your content gets picked up by a voice assistant. And one of the easy ways that you can begin experimenting with voice assistant technology is something called an Alexa flash briefing. So this truly is as entry level as it can get into experimenting with voice. And I've always leaned towards Alexa, although I work with Google and Cortana as well. But an Alexa flash briefing is the simplest way that you can go about getting something set up. So what a flash briefing actually is, think of it as like a mini audio update or a mini audio podcast. So what you can do within Alexa, you can build a flash briefing and you can embed 1 to 2 minute clips of audio that you can update daily that somebody then can get in a routine. So example, somebody says good morning to their voice assistant or Alexa, what they can do is they can get information about anything that you want to tell them about. So I know there's a lot of major news media outlets like CNN, the Washington Post, the New York Times that have a daily flash briefing that provides audio snippets and updates to their audience. I actually was working with somebody in Madison, Wisconsin. We created him a flash briefing for his podcast, which is centered around real estate, and he was able to provide daily updates and tips surrounding real estate, which the end goal is you include a call to action at the end, which then is going to drive somebody to that next level of carrying out an action, looking for more information, etc. So why you should create one is because a flash briefing and that clip of audio will put you top of mind for somebody. Because imagine if they're cycling through these things in the morning before they go to work or in the evening before they go to bed, they're being exposed to your voice, your brand, your content on a daily basis. So the best practices in terms of creating this are to keep your audio clips short, 1 to 2 minutes in length. Make sure your voice is pleasing and very, and loud and good enough to hear. And make sure that you provide some actionable tips and takeaway. People are listening to this to gain information and gain value. So you want to make sure if you actually move forward with a flash briefing that you're able to do some actionable tips and takeaways and embed that within the flash briefing to provide value. And really, this is just top of mind awareness. So the whole sell with voice assistant technology is being top of mind for the right person at the right time. And if you're constantly exposing yourself to people through flash briefings, through skills, and they're interacting with your branded content on a daily basis, that's going to put you more top of mind when they go to make a purchasing decision. And these different voice assistant technologies, Alexa, Google, are even allowing us to embed payment within these skills now and these different experiences, so people can actually buy subscriptions, buy products directly through the skill, which increases ROI dramatically. So when you start thinking about whether or not you need to deploy voice assistant technology for your brand, the most important thing that you need to think about initially is the pain point. What pain are my customers experiencing? What pain do people have that voice assistant technology can solve? So if you don't have a pain point, there is no reason in doing this. I mean, of course, yes, you want to be ahead of the game and you want to be an early adopter, so you're there top of mind for everybody. But the whole purpose of deploying something through a voice assistant is to solve a pain point. So you need to analyze and figure out what that pain is for my consumer. How can my brand, my product, my service solve that pain through the power of voice. Next is an idea. You really need to critically think about an idea that is unique enough and easy enough for somebody to use via voice. And that idea can be a game, it can be trivia, it can be question and answer, it can be something custom that links out with a different software program. But you need to have an idea that helps you solve that pain point. It needs to be simple and easy enough to use, and it needs to be tailored all around conversation and voice user interface. So the entire idea that you come up with has to focus on conversation. It has to focus on communication and language. Otherwise, you're not going to get anywhere. And then ultimately, after you come up with the pain point, you come up with the idea, what is the solution? What is the end goal that we're trying to get our customer to do? Are we trying to get them to purchase more of our product? Are we trying to get them to learn more information? What exactly are we trying to get them to do through voice? So bringing all three of these together, pain, idea, solution, the ultimate goal is to be able to fix something for our customers that we haven't been able to fix before because we haven't had such an easy way to do it through the power of voice assistant technology and providing almost an immediate action carried out to a request. So if you're thinking about deploying voice assistant technology, think about the pain, think about the idea, and think about the solution in terms of what you're trying to solve for your customer. So some brands that have been able to do this really well. The first is Butterball, and in the United States, Butterball is a very notable brand. They're one of the largest turkey brands in the United States. And what they deployed this past Thanksgiving in 2018 was the Butterball hotline skill. And to me, this is one of the best examples of a voice assistant skill helping somebody solve a problem. Because what Butterball did is they basically took a bunch of different conversations and questions that people would have about prepping a Thanksgiving turkey, how to cook a Thanksgiving turkey, and they programmed that in to an Alexa skill or voice app. And people were able to interact with that through their voice assistant during the Thanksgiving holiday. Because Butterball for many years has offered a hotline that people can call into to obtain information about all these similar question and answers. But they reduced the friction of that by then creating a skill that allowed you to get the same result through a voice assistant in half the time. So I think Butterball is a really strong use case of voice assistant technology, and they saw dramatic success with this as well in the number of activations and people using it throughout the Thanksgiving season. This is just a video, but really it just displays how they went about creating the skill, the different voice talent that they used in order to get this thing to happen. The other brand that really leveraged this in the United States is Tide. And Tide, again, is a very powerful brand when it comes to laundry detergent. In fact, I think one of the most notable brands. But they've had a skill on Alexa for about 2 years now called the Tide Stain Remover skill. And what this skill does is, say you're standing by your washer, you need to know how to remove an apple juice stain. Well, you can simply ask Alexa to help you with this by saying, open the Tide Stain Remover skill. And then what Tide will do is it will then give you step-by-step instructions on how to remove that stain. So imagine if you're doing this consistently over a period of time, you're being exposed to the branded content, you're being exposed to Tide, which means when you go and make a purchasing decision at your local store for a laundry detergent, more often than not, you're probably going to choose Tide because they've been helping you all along. And eventually, I think Tide is going to allow you to purchase products directly through the skill as well. So Tide is also another great example of a brand that's really leveraged the power of voice assistant technology to create a personalized experience for their customers that is keeping them top of mind consistently. So what does the future hold for this technology? What do things look like as we move forward? So ultimately, we are currently in the new industrial revolution. And I like to call this the tech revolution because I really haven't been able to come up with another name, and that's what people in the space are calling it. So we're currently in the tech revolution, and it's more substantial than any other revolution we've had in human history. We're undergoing a massive paradigm shift in thinking because of the progress that technology is making and the things that it's allowing us to do. And because of the tech revolution, voice assistants and AI are a byproduct. Human beings are inherently lazy, and technology fixes that. We're always looking for things that allow us to accomplish something faster, more efficiently. And that's exactly what voice assistant technology and artificial intelligence allows us to do. And especially from a marketing standpoint, it allows us to really, again, engage with our customers and provide solutions to problems quicker than we ever could have hoped to before through the power of this technology. Um, we're also seeing a massive shift from the Internet of People to the Internet of Things. When the Internet first came into being back in the 1990s, it was all about connecting people, chat rooms and different things. Well, now it's blowing up into the Internet of Things where all of our devices are in an ecosystem of communicating with one another. We're going to see over the next couple of years, an internet ecosystem of toasters. Toasters, just as an example, who are reporting data in real time to the toaster Internet of Things. They're all learning from one another, and they'll probably know their expiration date. So without thinking about it, say your toaster's about to break in this future world of IoT, the toaster itself will already know when it's about to die, and it'll probably order itself a new one to replace itself because it knows it's going to die. And that's the power of all of this technology as we undergo this paradigm shift. All of our devices are already talking to one another, and that's only going to grow, and it's only going to give us more access to data that we can use in developing these different tool sets. So we're shifting back from the screen to the simplest form of communication, and that form of communication is voice. And that is why storytelling too, we've heard about storytelling across marketing. It's become a really popular buzzword over the past 2 years, but for good reason. Our ability to tell stories is going to become more important, and create those personalized messages that people can engage with via a voice assistant is something that we've never had before. So if you're in the process of storytelling, or if you're in a role that involves storytelling, it's going to become even more important as we develop these different experiences for our customers. And I would even go as far as saying we're going to see somewhat of a decline in the smartphone. I definitely think that we're going to shift more towards voice assistant technology, more of a reliance on it, and we may actually see a decline in the smartphone. I think the smartphone will be around for a very long time to come, but I think we're going to see a decline in that as this technology becomes more prevalent in our day-to-day lives. So ultimately, unleash the power of artificial intelligence and voice. So we're still on the ground floor of this technology, relatively speaking. We're in the late early adoption phase right now, meaning there's still plenty of time to get in on this early if you want to. And that would be my recommendation as a brand because, well, that would be my recommendation for a brand because if you're in there now, you're going to be ahead of all your competitors when they realize, oh, we need to finally deploy this technology, we need to get on it because this is where people are. You're going to be leagues ahead of them because you're already engaging and experimenting with this technology. The good news is that Amazon and Google and Microsoft have made it insanely simple to start experimenting with this. There's very simple developer tools out there that can be used. A lot of the code and programming languages in Node.js and JavaScript, which is really easy to work with. But if you're somebody who doesn't even want to deal with the coding aspect of this, you can work with somebody like myself and RedFox Creative to analyze where voice will fit into your overall marketing strategy, and we can help you design a voice experience for your consumers. We can help you figure out what you can do, what branded experience you can create from the ground up that can really help gain you a valuable ROI in this new environment that we're going to be working with. So that's my presentation. If you want to connect with me, here's my contact information. I'm very active on Twitter. LinkedIn, I'm also very, very active on as well. Feel free to send me a connection request. Instagram, my email is nickm@redfoxcreate.com, and then my website is listed at the bottom as well. I love having discussions with people just to even talk about ideas and where this could fit into overall strategy. So please, please, please do not hesitate to contact me. And then lastly, this is a quote I always like to leave all my presentations off because when I first read this quote many, many years ago, I know how I've interpreted it. It really has impacted me and influenced me and helped me get to the point that I am today. And that quote is, "Stay hungry, stay foolish. Never stop learning, never stop growing, and no idea is too crazy enough to accomplish." It may seem crazy when you start thinking about it, but the world operates on crazy, and the crazier we can be with ideas, the better off we're going to make the world for everybody else. So thank you, and I think we have some time for questions.
Thank you so much, Mr. Nick. That was a splendid explanation, and your presentation is also awesome. And dear participants, please raise questions for the presentation done by Mr. Nick on the topic of how you can start giving your brand of voice to the power of AI and voice assistant technology. So, Mr. Nick, we have two questions in the chat box. How to build a brand voice?
So I guess how I would respond to that is again, if you're looking at, you have to decide what voice assistant at this point works best for you, whether you want that to be Alexa, whether you want that to be Google Assistant or Cortana. So it's really simple to do this. You just need to start thinking strategically from, a voice user experience standpoint in terms of what exactly am I going to create that's going to solve a problem for somebody. And you can do this, say it's Alexa, you go into the Alexa developer console, you go into Amazon Web Services, and they give you a bunch of tools to be able to construct a skill from the ground up. But again, if you're looking for some more detailed experience and somebody who can really help you flesh out that strategy, please feel free to reach out to me. I'd be more than happy to have a conversation, figure out how we can do that for you.
Mr. Nick, we have a second question. What are the ways to maintain the brand voice?
So I guess just trying to understand that question. So I guess if you're looking at it from a marketing perspective, it's just going to require consistent maintenance with your content. So again, it's all about that brand image that you're trying to display to somebody via the voice assistant platform. So you really need to make sure that the content you're producing is easy for somebody to use via voice assistant technology. And you just really want to make sure that it hones in and is key to your brand, because branded content now is going to be more important than ever. Hopefully I understood that question and that answered that.